a lot of y'all know my name, Manny Light, from my username. But a lot of you know that I'm real big on financial literacy, and one of the best avenues for that is real estate. And in the last couple of days, you might be getting nervous or saying, man, real estate's not probably the best avenue where everything's going on. And the way I think of it, I think it still is if you position yourself the right way. But I'm a pup in the game, and I really wanted to bring someone on here that is not only knows the game in theory, but is actually doing it, practicing it. Because a lot of us, we just listen to people that have no clue, people that just read books about real estate or making money. And I wanted to bring someone and just ask them a few questions of someone that's actually in the game, doing it on a daily basis. And that's my boy, Noah. Hey, Noah, how you doing?
What's good, bro? How's everything?
Going good, going good. How's everything on your end?
Everything's good, man. Can't complain.
All right. So real quick, I said a little bit, and first and foremost, I need to apologize because I know almost a year now we've been trying to link, to put some information out there to help people, and we're getting married, new in the game, I didn't really get to put it together. So thank you for taking this interview first and foremost.
Yeah, no problem.
Right. So I was just letting people know that I always watch you from afar. My boy Reggie, Reg, he really put me on to you because we were speaking about real estate, and he's like, yo, you need to follow this dude Noah. Not only that he talks the game, he does it. And I know you have a few properties. So, but I'm going to let you introduce yourself. Tell the people, a little bit about you, what you think they should know before we get started.
Yeah, definitely. So I've been doing real estate for, I'd say about 11 years now. I'm mostly what you call a buy and hold guy. So I buy properties, fix them up, and then rent them out. I do some flips every now and then. I'm not big on the flips, but I do them. It's a nice chunk of change, good source of income. What I do is I use my flips to buy more rental properties. So if I flip a house, basically buy it, fix it up, sell it, I'll then use, the proceeds from that to buy another rental property, fix that up, and then rent it out. So I've been doing that for about, like I said, 11 years, same recipe, built up a nice sort of residual income, as most people would call it. So, that's pretty much the real estate game. Other than that, I got a few other things that I do, but I'll stick to the real estate right now.
Yeah, nah, and I know you, man, you do it all. I think that's what really, stands out with me, that you're very diverse. But just to go off of, I did have a question, and how you said you're more with buy and hold. So something over the last year or so that's been really getting a lot of buzz, and I would love to get your take on it, is wholesaling. So a lot of people are talking this wholesaling game. What are your thoughts on it?
So wholesaling it's a good intro to real estate if you don't necessarily have the capital to jump into real estate. So basically wholesaling is getting a property under contract, and before you have to close on it, you assign it to someone else, basically. So it's like you're taking a contract, you're giving it to somebody else, or really you're selling it to somebody else. Kind of like a flip in a way. But before you get there, it's like you actually sell it to someone. You're selling the contract to somebody else, and then you make money off of that. So if you had, say, a contract for, I don't know, you're buying a property, you add $5,000 onto, as your assignment fee, somebody else buys it, and then boom, you get paid. Now, it's a good hustle for someone that doesn't have their own money to invest in real estate. It takes some work, and it takes a lot of grind, because you have to find good properties, and you're competing against guys like me, where I don't want to pay a wholesaler. I want to find my own properties. I don't want to pay the fee. I want to make as much money as possible. But if you're a good wholesaler and you bring properties to investors, you get paid. So I think wholesaling it's been around for a long time. like I said, it's a great intro to real estate if you don't have the money. But it does take some work though.
All right. And so another one real quick. So you said you do flipping, so I'm guessing that's something you like. And and I think that's the best stuff I like about your post. You know, the beginning and the end. And, you know, me and my wife, that's somewhere that, you know, we really want to, you know, get to, right? But what about Airbnb? So Airbnb has been taking a hit. You know, a lot of people, you know, hit me up like, yo, let's do this. Let's get all these, you know, apartments under contract, Airbnb. You know, and it's backfired, you know. What are your thoughts on that?
So again, Airbnb is it's a good hustle, right? I don't think that you can build a great real estate portfolio off of Airbnb because it's kind of high risk. And also too, with Airbnb, the laws in each state are different, right? So like in Massachusetts is not necessarily a very friendly Airbnb state. We have rules against how long you can rent to a certain person without being a hotel. And Airbnb is classified like outside of the hotel thing, right? So it'd be similar to like Lyft or similar to Uber, right? Where it falls outside of the realm of being, you know, like a cab and going through that whole process. You bypass that by doing Uber. Well, Airbnb is essentially the same thing. But in Massachusetts, there's heavy laws against renting or doing any kind of rental agreement, which is a short-term kind of rental agreement. So in Boston's starting to come down a lot on the Airbnb thing because it's kind of like an unregulated market. Now, Airbnb in this case is taking a massive hit because no one can really go anywhere, right? Everyone's confined to their home. If you're a basic landlord where you're just renting to a tenant, then your tenant is essentially staying at home in your property. They're not moving around. You lock them in with a lease. So you're kind of okay there. Now, a lot of people can't afford to pay right now, so that's another story. But if you're an Airbnb person or the majority of your portfolio is Airbnb, you really don't have a lot of customers right now. You're taking a massive hit. So I would say that if you're going to do Airbnb, you want to combine that with a regular portfolio of rentals. So if I had to give like a percentage, and again, this is, you know, I'm a different investor than some people. So this is not all like black and white or right or wrong, but
but that's why I got you. I want to know what you giving, so I'm gonna write this down myself.
So for me, I would say like a good portfolio of Airbnb would be like a 70-30 or even an 80-20, right? You want to have 70 to 80% of your portfolio standard rentals, lease, or, you know, maybe not lease, but where somebody is moving into your property and they're paying you monthly and you have they're under contract essentially. And then if you want to do the Airbnb, because you can make a lot of money off of Airbnb pretty quick, but you want to have majority of your portfolio locked into regular rentals, and then you could add the Airbnb on top of that.
All right, perfect. So with Airbnb, talking about Airbnb, everything going on right now, COVID-19, a lot of people taking hits, and even more so, we have rental strikes. We have the commercial real estate think that they might collapse within the next couple of weeks, right?
Yeah.
And just a lot of stuff is going on with the market. So how's it affecting you first and foremost? In the game with buy and hold, how's that affecting you so far?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm like every other landlord out there, right? So in Massachusetts, so I'll talk specifically about myself. So in Massachusetts, they've done two things, right? First, they've said landlords cannot evict right now, right? And then also, so they've held off on all evictions. They've also held off on all foreclosures. So that helps both the landlords and that helps tenants in a way. Now, for most tenants, you know, they're going to want to look into what are the rules around the non-payment, right? So if you tell your landlord, you know, I'm out of work right now, or let's just say you're not out of work, you're actually still employed, but your job is not paying you, obviously you can't pay the rent. So in Massachusetts specifically, you know, if landlords can't evict and you can't pay, then you're like in this limbo state, right? Where it's like, well, I can't pay you, but you also can't evict me. Now, I haven't heard any specifics around that. Most, like the governor is saying, work with your landlord, meaning that if you can pay something, but if you can't, then, you know, your landlord may give you, you know, an extra month or some time. But because this sort of overhanging law, which says that you can't evict, it basically means that tenants don't have to pay. Now, I just heard that there was a federal, there was legislation that just recently came out called the CARES Act. I think it just came out maybe about 3 days ago. Essentially what that says is that if you have a federally backed mortgage, so a mortgage from Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, if your mortgage falls under those two entities, you cannot evict your tenants, or specifically, I think it's you can't file for an eviction for 120 days. So that essentially means like basically your tenants don't have to pay. Even after that 120 days is up, you still have to give them another like 30-day grace period. So for a landlord like me, I mean, that's pretty detrimental to your business, right? It's like you're not getting paid. How do you pay your mortgage? Now, on the landlord side, there are mortgage companies that are working with landlords, but a lot of people think like, well, you know, Governor Baker in Massachusetts specifically says, well, I don't have to pay. My landlord just has to, you know, live with that. But for most landlords, if you call your mortgage company and you say, hey, listen, I can't make my mortgage payment, they'll put you on something which they call a forbearance, a mortgage forbearance. And basically what that means is that you don't have to pay your mortgage for maybe, say, 3 months. After that 3 months is up, they're coming for their money. So
All of it.
all of it. Yeah, all of it. So in June, you got to make a massive mortgage payment.
It's
right?
ridiculous.
So for the renter side, it's kind of like you guys are pretty good. Like you don't have to pay your rent right now. And you're in this state where your landlord can't evict you. But for a landlord, you don't have to pay your mortgage right now, but that mortgage payment is coming. So it is what it is right now. I have to figure it out in 3 months. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, and I was doing jokingly, but seriously, like, I felt like, you know, if you want to call it luck, blessed that, you know, my tenants paid. But when the news came out, they were asking me, you don't have to pay your mortgage. Like they negotiated. I'm like, yo, you didn't lose your job. So like, let's hold up. And I'll explain to them like, no, like if for simple numbers, what you were saying is if your mortgage is $1,000 a month, after 3 months, you have to make a $4,000 payment. And so it just doesn't help. And what I was telling people is, and it's not their problem, but if you think you're sticking it to the man, the rich are the ones that could absorb this for 3 months.
Facts.
So when time comes, someone like me, you know, I know you're definitely more in the game than me, so you probably could absorb it a little bit more than me. But if it goes extended, the people that are going to come behind us and buy our properties on penny and a dollar are not going to be as good to them as us. And
so to follow up to that, so I also have tenants that they get to work from home. They're still being paid. So they're still going to continue to pay their rent. But it's a good point, though. And it's a point that I would probably I try to highlight to people all the time that most landlords are not rich. You know, most landlords, they have a individual property. They're paying their mortgage. There might be a little bit extra that they're getting. they might be using that extra to pay for their kids' college or, put groceries on the table. So it's not one of those things where, like you said, you're sticking it to the man. You're actually putting
Helping
a
them
small
out.
landlord out of business. Yeah, if you can afford to pay. I tell all tenants, if you can afford to pay right now, you should pay. Because ultimately, if your landlord does lose their property, I mean, you lose your house. It's a domino effect. But again, if you're a person or facing a hardship because of this situation,
Work with
contact your landlord and try to work with them.
Exactly. So with that, on the flip side, I'm actually looking at this and kind of not blind to what people are going through, but as someone that wants to get in the game, someone that's been, studying, putting my money aside, I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is a good opportunity if I, when everything slows down, that there's a possibility that there might be some properties out there, that I could get on pennies on the dollar, or not like that, not like 2009, 2010, but I could get cheaper properties. What are your thoughts? Is this something positive that I could take out of this?
Bro, your connection's a little bad.
Okay,
I
sorry.
don't know if that's me or if that's you.
Nah, I'm getting you
better
clear.
now, yeah.
Can you can hear me now?
Yeah, your connection's a little staticky.
Oh, okay, because I could. All right. 1 second. Hold on.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause everything on my end is coming clear. What about now?
Okay, you can hear me clear?
Yeah. You're coming clear.
Hold on 1 second. Let me see if I'll let me jump on Wi-Fi real quick. Hold on 1 second.
Okay.
Let me see if that makes it better. All right, we should be good then.
All right. So basically, I was like, what are some other positives people could take out of this? Or like, maybe cheaper properties or whatever. For me, that's what I'm looking at. I might have better deals, and more because the market was getting so tight, is that people were just outbidding you. Like $100 house was selling for 120. It was just like crazy. So do you see any more positives that could come out of this for people looking to get into the game?
Yo, hold on 1 second. Yo, I'm gonna jump off real quick and jump back on because I'm still getting you in a little static, and I'm not sure if that's me or that's you. Let me jump off and I'll jump right back on.
All right. Okay, guys. So while he jumps off, there's a few points that we talked about. Wholesaling, that he thinks is a very good option. A very good option for someone that doesn't have money and wants to, get some money to get into real estate. Airbnb, be more diverse. That's what I got from that. Be more diverse. If you're going to do Airbnb, let your portfolio be like more 70% rentals, 30% Airbnb. And the reason for that is what's going on right now. Can you hear me clearly now?
Yeah, I got you now. Yep.
Perfect. So basically it was more, what are some positives? Like, we're getting hammered with all the negativity in the news, and it can scare people off. And that's what I don't want, because so many people are like, no, I'm gonna stick with rentals and this and that. And I'm just like, man, like that, it doesn't make, you know what I'm saying? That's not a good way to look at it. Like, if you have to start off renting, yeah, but I'm one that likes to inspire people to buy property. So I don't want them to get scared about this. So what are some positive points we could take out of what's going on right now and things they could take advantage of soon?
Yeah, definitely. So I would say that right now, if you were in a position to buy, let's just say a month or two ago, this is technically still a good time to look at buying properties, right? So two things about what's happening. One is that when the economy is going through any kind of crisis, right? So you can look at, say, the stock market right now. Stock market is getting hammered, right? Now that in itself lends to an opportunity, right? Because that Amazon stock or that Apple stock that was trading at, 2,500 or 3,000 a month ago is now trading at, 1,500 or something like that, right? So the same thing happens in real estate. Now, it doesn't happen as fast as the stock market, but you can definitely start to see a domino effect, right? So the thing that is happening right now is, if you look at the prices of houses, they haven't fell, right? They haven't like drastically fell where the house that you were looking at that was 400,000 is now, 300 or 200,000. What's happening right now is that banks are getting very, very, they're starting to restrict their guidelines, right? So where you could walk into a bank and have maybe a credit score of 620 and buy a house, they've now lifted that, though they've now increased that credit score to say 700. They've also tightened their guidelines on, the amount of risk they're willing to take on. So meaning how much house to how much you can afford, or the value of the house, right? Now, when banks start putting extra restrictions on, or extra guidelines on giving people loans, it starts to decrease the number of people available that can purchase. So if you are, say, an investor, or you're somebody that's looking for a home and you happen to have a 700 credit score, you happen to have, a good deposit that you can put down, you in itself can still get a house right now. And once sellers start to feel restricted by the number of buyers, the value of the house will come down. So I anticipate probably within, or it depends on how long this lasts. So if this goes till, let's say, June or maybe even July, you're going to see the prices of houses start to come down. They're going to start falling by like 10, 15, 20. And once that happens, if you've been looking at a property and you're like, I'm in a position to buy, and, if it comes down $20,000 or $30,000, I'm willing to jump on it, it's still a good time to buy. The only thing that I would caution people on is, if you're buying an investment property, meaning that you don't plan on living there, you want to make sure that your numbers are very, very tight. You want to make sure that you run accurate numbers. You know what kind of rental amounts that you can get. If you want to go market rent or Section 8, market meaning, a person that doesn't have a subsidy, or you want to go Section 8. You kind of want to know all those ins and outs before you buy an investment, because it's a little bit more risky. And the banks are less forgiving on an investment property versus a property that you live at, meaning that it's more likely that if you got into a situation where you couldn't pay your mortgage, if you live in the property, the bank is willing to work with you. But if it's a straight investment property where you don't live in it and you're just using it to make money, the banks are less likely to work with you on that. So,
Cool.
the short answer is you should definitely still look at real estate right now.
All right. So one thing to everybody watching, a few people are putting questions out there. I'm actually writing the questions down, and I will get to your questions, all right, because we still have some time. So that's a good lead into my next question, that what you were just talking about. What advice would you give people, or the person that is looking to buy their first property, or myself, right? Like, I remember I hit you up and I said, yo, I'm a pup in the game. I'm honest. Like, I'm a pup. I want to learn from people doing it. What advice would you give someone like me that wants to buy that next property, or someone looking to buy their first property, so that when stuff, if it slows down, June, July slows down, what can someone start doing now to position themselves to have a better chance of taking advantage of whatever is out there?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of cliche, but information is power. I remember when I first started in real estate, like, I studied it like it was a college course. I tried to learn everything I could, all the ins and outs, how to get started. The biggest thing that I did, I like getting information from people. So you can read a lot of books and get information. You can talk to people, but I like jumping in like real estate forums, right, where people just throwing out questions like, how do I evict a tenant, or, how do I find contractors, stuff like that, right? Where
Big
you just
pockets.
have like Bigger Pockets. I mean, that
Bigger
was like my
pockets.
number one site to go to, biggerpockets.com. I would jump into forums and just read like 100 forums a day, just people throwing random questions like, how do I do this? How do I do that? And people respond, real people responding like, this is how I did it in, Delaware. This is how I did it in Massachusetts. I think that, you have to be ready for an opportunity before you can take advantage of it. So anybody that's been thinking about real estate or thinking about buying, thinking about purchasing, I would start to get all of that information that you need right now. I would start to arm yourself with that information. You want to know about banks. You want to know how lending works. Now, a lot of this sounds like, really complicated and confusing, but it really is not, right? It's like, if you want to learn how the process is, to get through a purchase process, all you have to do is just look it up. Like, from A to Z, how do I go through the purchase process? All that information is out there. It's like, you start with the lender, you go through this, you submit that. You can start to do that right now. And once you know what the situation is going to be, you can instantly jump in it. If you're going to be straight investor, where you're just buying an investment property, start to look at your numbers right now. Start to analyze deals right now. Start to look at, what's the rental amounts in these different markets. Start to look at Section 8 program. Understand how the Section 8 program works. Understand how the market rate tenants work. Just if you have that information right now, not only is it less scary when you go through the process, but it's also one of those things that, if you go into an opportunity with 50% of the information, you can learn the other 50% on the back end. But if you go in there with like no information, you kind of just like taking a huge risk. So, this is a good time for everybody to just go on the internet and just start looking up information.
All right, then. Question. You said that's good, forums, and you said read books. What are two favorite books you might, not your favorite, but for this topic you would recommend people?
Rich Dad Poor Dad is like that's kind of like clutch book. It's a clutch book. I think anybody looking to start in real estate, it's also like an inspirational book too. It's where you get your mindset about like generational wealth, having something to leave behind to your kids, stuff like that. And it kind of does explain like the power of real estate. Because real estate is like, to me, it's a tool to build generational wealth. It's not just like, a thing that you can do to make money. But most of the wealthy people in this country, whether it be like celebrities, ball players, or, just straight up business people, they all own a piece of real estate. Like, real estate is part of their portfolio. So Rich Dad Poor Dad is definitely a dope book. I would encourage everybody to read that. The E-Myth is also a pretty dope book. It's another one that I would recommend. There's a few other ones out there. If anybody needs any like real estate books, hit me on the DM and I can send you like a bunch of different ones that you can read, and it'll arm you with some information. But don't skip over those forums though. Jump into the forums and look at real people's questions, because the forums are one of those things you can search the same question. Like, hey, I want to know, how do I purchase a property from A to Z? It's like, boom, somebody will post something and then you have the answer right there.
Yeah. Two books that I'll recommend is The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. It's an amazing book because a lot of people get excited to start the process, but when after that excitement's gone, they stop. Everybody wants to buy a house and they start saving. And so The Compound Effect is a great book. And then one book that I always felt like it was amazing was The Richest Man in Babylon. Mm-hmm. That book, people were telling me for years to read that book, The Richest Man in Babylon. And when I read it, it was just like Think and Grow Rich. Like, it just seemed like all these books like just came out of The Richest Man in Babylon. Like, that's how it felt. It was a real good book, right? So, all right. So someone did have a question, so I'm going to jump into someone's question.
No,
from the way they positioned the question was, I think they're a landlord. And they said this month they got paid their rent, but what is some advice you would tell them to that things they could do to probably soften the blow if their tenants couldn't start paying it next month? Is there any resources or anything you could say? Or
Yeah, so as you know, as I stated before, that I would reach out to your mortgage company, and I encourage all landlords to do this, right? So regardless if your tenants are paying right now or they're not telling you they're not going to be able to pay, I would reach out to your mortgage company right now and get information on relief programs that they have in place right now. Now, a lot of mortgage companies, they don't necessarily have a program in place because this is all sort of fluid. It's new. But there are existing relief programs that they will probably tap into, or they'll mirror a specific program for the COVID-19, circumstance. But I encourage all landlords, call your mortgage companies and get information on any relief programs that they have right now. And the reason why I say that is because even if your tenants are paying, like May is right around the corner, even though it's only April, most people would have been out of work completely for a whole month. And May is going to make that even longer, right? So it's like, even if they had the money to pay in April, they may not be able to pay in May. And you don't want to be calling them last minute because everyone is calling the mortgage companies right now. Last time I called mine earlier this week, and I was on hold for 3 hours. So yeah, it's crazy. So everyone is calling their mortgage company right now. So I would definitely encourage all landlords, reach out to your mortgage company right now, get that information. There's probably paperwork involved in the process. A few of my mortgage companies, one was able to do it right away. The other one said, I got to send you some paperwork. You got to send it back. But get that information right now so that you're not scrambling last minute. And then as far as just like, overall things there's really nothing you can do in terms of, absorbing tenants not paying. If you have some reserves, you can start taking a look at what you have in reserve. But overall, we're all in the same situation. So, if I figure something out, I'll let you know.
All right. So, yep. And the person that asked the question said thank you. So you answered, you answered the question. One thing I'll put on top of that is when you call, ask as many questions as possible, understanding what you're signing up for. That's one. Because in the news, a few people signed up for the and didn't realize that they had to make the full payment of all 3 months on the 4th month. So just know what you are signing up for. That will be good. And then also what I've been doing, I've been proactive with talking to my tenants. For me, it's a little easier because I don't have as many as you. But I just go to them, talk to them, so I have a feel of what's coming and what we could do, and just help them out. So, help them out. So, because if they can't pay rent, most likely they have problems with food and whatnot. Right. And sometimes it's just like some websites and whatnot that, to send them. So that's, So that's good.
Yeah,
so,
I would also just real quick. I would also just add that when you call your mortgage companies, the thing that you don't want to do is make it sound like you're doing okay or that you may be able to pay. Right. So if you're gonna call, be like, I'm not getting paid, so I need to know what relief programs you have. What I can do, because if you say like, well, I'm calling because I think they might not be able to pay, or I'm not sure, I just want to get some information, they're going to give you the least amount of information as possible. So definitely I encourage you. Yeah. So, because if my tenant calls me like, hey, I can pay, but you want it? I'm going to be like, yeah, I want it. So if you call, make sure you're like, yeah, I'm in a situation where I'm not going to be able to pay. What is the relief programs that you have? And then they'll give you, all the information at that point.
All right. So right now, what I wanted to do was, I have my questions and whatnot, but you're in the game. So what question do you think I should be asking, or most people should be asking, and they never ask because they just don't know to ask? Like, is there any information that like you think should get out there, but I just didn't ask that question that can help everyone that's on?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're a person that's looking to start in real estate right now, you definitely want to pay attention to information that is coming out about, like lending. I think like one of the things that helped me the most in real estate is understanding the way like the banks work in terms of the loan process. So I mean, if you so let's just say you're a person that you've been looking for a home, the COVID-19 thing kicked in, and then everything is on a standstill. If you have a loan officer, or if you have a bank that you've been working with, reach out to them and ask them, what's the new procedures around lending. Questions like, what are the interest rates, right? So everyone is probably has heard like, oh, the Fed, has made the interest rate 0, right? Or something below that. Most people will be surprised that's like, it's only 0 on short-term loans. It's not necessarily 0 on home mortgages, right? So that's kind of like misinformation, or information that now some of them have dropped down low, but it's not 0. So I would encourage people like, start to get some of that information from your loan officer about what is the process now for purchasing a home if you want to start. If you don't have a loan officer, just call any bank and they'll hook you up with a loan officer and just ask them like, what's the process for lending right now? How long does it take? Are there extra things that I need? That's good information to know right now. There's other things that you could possibly be doing as far as real estate is concerned. But I always look at it as like, if you want to jump into real estate, you really want to start to identify what you want to do in real estate. So you want to look at like, where do I want to live if I do want to buy a house? Do I want to be a first-time home buyer or an investor? Meaning that like, do I just want to buy a house that's a single family and not have any tenants? Do I want to buy a 2-family? Start to look at like what you actually want to do in real estate right now, where you want to live, those kind of things, so that if there's an opportunity that comes, 2 months from now, you've already ran through the scenario in your mind and you know what you want to do. And that way you don't have to take even more time to decide. It's like, hey, I know what I want to do. I have an opportunity here. Let me jump on it right now. So, I mean, that's what I would kind of recommend.
All right, perfect. So real quick to the people watching, if anyone has any questions, I know Noah may have to jump off soon, but if you have any questions, shoot it real quick. I will ask it. And one thing I'll say on top of that is be more involved or knowledgeable about local elections in the areas that you want to buy your properties. Because understanding the laws on that level, a lot of people just like, like going out there for president, one of the, that big one. But a lot of times it's the local, representatives are the ones that put those laws in about Airbnb or, if someone just decides not to pay you, how you could evict them or whatnot. So definitely get involved with your local elections, especially for our people. We really don't go out for local elections, and that really affects us, right? So does anyone have any questions out there before I continue? All right. How much more time do you have? Because I don't want to run over too much.
I could do another like 15 minutes. I'm good with that.
Okay. Someone asked a question. What is one of the worst things you have faced as a property owner / investor?
I mean, it's been a few. I would say eviction is probably up there as like, one of the worst things you want to go through as a landlord. If you're a landlord, if you're a small landlord, you have 1 or 2 properties, doing an eviction is kind of expensive, especially in Massachusetts. I always encourage people that if you do an eviction, you should go about it, the right way. You don't want to do an eviction on your own if you don't know the laws. You want to hire somebody to do an eviction. It's pretty standard in Massachusetts, hiring either a lawyer or somebody that'll do the eviction for you. But on top of the cost of an eviction, there's also like renovation costs if the person has, trashed your apartment or they haven't kept it up. Normally, if you have to evict somebody, it's because they're a terrible tenant and, they're not taking care of your property, they're not paying. So that whole process in its entirety is very expensive. It's probably, in terms of real estate, it's like one of the costs to landlords that you hate to pay, but it just comes with the territory. So definitely eviction. Unfortunately, I've never been in a position where I couldn't afford my mortgage or I couldn't pay my bills. So I've been lucky in that sense where, I've analyzed with a couple a couple tenants not paying. I'm still able to pay my mortgage, still able to pay my bills. So I would definitely encourage people, and anyone can hit me up if you need information on how to analyze a deal or, how to run numbers, stuff like that. I'm cool with, giving people that information, but I would encourage people that, if you want to be an investor, meaning that you want to actually rent to people, make sure that you understand the numbers that come with it. Because if you don't, and you're doing it sort of like willy-nilly, when you have a problem, your problem gets magnified times 10 because you don't necessarily understand how the numbers work. So that's one of the things that's been helpful for me is when I get into a tight situation, my situation is not so tight because I've left room, for a little bit of, I guess you call it some damage control or some preventative measures. So definitely, understand your numbers, understand, the way tenant laws are, because that could also hurt you. But for me, other than eviction, I haven't had anything that was, too detrimental to my business. I will say that the rental business, even in a crisis, is probably one of the most solid businesses that you can be in. Everything is going to fall before, a rental market completely falls from the bottom. Stocks are going to fall, Amazon's going to go out of business. All of these things are going to stop. But, the rental market or the rental game is pretty solid.
All right, perfect. So someone else had another question. They did say they got on a little late. So they asked about within the next 2 years, they want to get their first property. And they asked questions regarding like Airbnb and Section 8. So I know you spoke on Airbnb. And I'm going to try to put out a recap of this. But what are your thoughts on Section 8?
Yeah, so Section 8 is a gift and a curse, I would say.
Right now, it's a gift.
It is, it could be a gift and a curse. It is definitely from a landlord's perspective. It is guaranteed rent. Most Section 8 programs, they're paying regardless. So if you're a landlord right now and you have Section 8 tenants, their subsidies are still going to kick in. Now, whether the Section 8 tenant can pay their portion of it is another matter, but you're at least still getting paid some rent by the government. The other thing about Section 8 is that, obviously it's a great program for people that actually need a subsidy. There are people out there struggling. There's single parents. There's families that just don't make enough. And so the program is absolutely necessary. So I will say that. The reason why, I say it's a gift and a curse is because, from my experience, a lot of people can take advantage of that program because the program is heavily weighed against landlords, meaning that, and not rightfully so, but there's been enough circumstances where landlords have taken advantage of the program. So the program has sort of flipped that, and it allows tenants to take advantage of the landlords. So it's very hard to evict a Section 8 tenant. Section 8 tenants have like more than 9 lives. They can totally destroy your apartment, totally destroy your unit. and the Section 8 program will just move them somewhere else. So they don't really get penalized for things that, for taking advantage of the program. However, I do a lot of investing out in the Springfield area, and most of my Springfield portfolio is Section 8 tenants. So I will say that if you screen Section 8 tenants properly, just like you would screen anybody else, you make sure that the record's clean, they have, no prior evictions, credit score is a little bit iffy when it comes to Section 8, but there's enough of screening that you can do on a Section 8 tenant to make sure that you're getting a decent person. If you do that, I've had some evictions with Section 8 tenants, but for the most part, I've had pretty good Section 8 people. So when landlords tell me like, oh, I don't do Section 8 at all, I was kind of like, you're missing out on money. Everything is an opportunity. So.
Yeah, because I have Section 8, and right now it's a godsend, whereas I know if that tenant loses their job, they're going to get their rent covered, right? So
yeah, exactly.
That's good. So you did say that you've been in the game, real estate investing for 11 years.
Yep.
That's dope. So what got you into real estate investment?
It's funny. My aunt, she owned a property like way back in the day. When I was growing up, I didn't know it was a property that she owned. I just, we go to my aunt's house and, I didn't know that she was like renting it out or renting. She had a 3-family, in Cambridge. And, so I grew up, I used to talk to my aunt about money a lot. She told me about like saving and how to save money and how to budget money, stuff like that. So it wasn't until I got a little bit older that I realized that, my aunt was rich because she like rented out her apartments in Cambridge. She always seemed to have money. We come around and she would always give us money and stuff like that. So I got hip to it early by her. And then, my aunt passed away. I went off to college, whatever, did my thing in school, still kind of stayed up with real estate. I took a couple real estate classes. And then when I got out of school, I stayed within the real estate realm, just education wise. But I just started thinking, I was like, the average job is just it's not going to pay me what I want. And it's also not going to get me to the place where I want to be. And then I started doing heavy research on, real estate investing to figure out like, what is this all about? How is my aunt able to rent out a property and make so much money? And once I learned, how residual income worked, I was hooked. I'm like, yo, I could be at the crib chilling and still getting paid. I could be on vacation, still getting paid. And also too, is I could do other business ventures and still get paid. And to me, I was hooked. I bought my first property. It was a 2-family. I rented out one side. That one side paid like 80% of my mortgage. And from there, I was just like, yo, this is crazy. I was like, I got to do this over and over and over again. Yeah. So, that's kind of where I first got started.
All right. That's what's up. So one thing I wanted to put out there, I actually have a link. There's a guy that has a Google Drive, and he just has tons of PDFs of books. So if anybody wants that, I could put it out there too, where just, free PDFs of books for whatever you need. So I think, well, that's all my questions that I did have. So I have 2 questions. Nothing to do with real estate, but first one, I'm trying to get into the Afro beats. Yeah, I'm trying. I know you got that on lock, right? So one of my favorite guys is, Davido. Who you am I on the right track? Who do you think I should listen to?
Yeah, Davido he's like the Michael Jackson of Afrobeats right now. Yeah, he's killing it in the game right now. Another artist that's kind of like semi out, well, not semi, but he's out there too. Burna Boy is another.
Burna Boy?
Yeah, Burna Boy. if you look up Burna Boy, you'll hear a bunch of his songs that you know of right now. He's
Okay.
got a bunch of songs with some mainstream artists, and then obviously like the video is just the video just speaks for itself. That's Afrobeats right there. And then if you just type in type in the video on YouTube or Burna Boy, you'll get a whole bunch of other artists that are definitely killing it. But yeah, man, Afrobeats is. I mean, that's what it is right now. I'm not actually. It's funny because I'm not actually African. My family's from Barbados. But,
Okay, islands. Same
yeah. But my partner is African.
Yeah.
And 10 years ago, there wasn't even Afrobeats wasn't even heard of. So it's kind of cool right now that Afrobeats is kind of like taking over music because it's a dope culture, it's a dope vibe, but it's also something that when people give it a shot, they realize that a lot of this music they like and they can get with, but anytime you put like Afro on something, people are like, I'm not really sure, but then it's a good vibe though.
All right, and the last one is a hard question. When you eat cereal, what goes into the bowl first? Cereal or the milk?
Cereal and milk. I'm old school, man. So I gotta have the cereal before the milk. That milk before cereal thing is kind of questionable. I mean, that may be the difference between me doing a deal with somebody and not doing a deal. Like, if you're pouring the milk before the cereal, I'm not sure I can trust you. So, yeah, for all those that are listening, if you pour the milk before the cereal, don't hit me up. No, I'm just joking.
All right, so before we end, and it's perfect because this is going to end in a few minutes, is there any last things that you want to say to everybody?
I would just say that in general, real estate is definitely is still a good avenue to explore right now. As people of color, and there might be other people on that are following you, so not just that, but for anybody in general, real estate is just one of those things that if you tap into it now, it will give you what you're looking for, but it will give you tenfold, years from now. And that's the thing that, people of color specifically need to start looking into is like not the now, but, the future. I started it when I was in my 20s and I'm doing very well for my family is good. And things are working. So I would say if anyone's interested into it, look into it right now. Let it be something that you explore. There is no millionaire out here that doesn't have a real estate portfolio. I can say that pretty confidently. So if you have any questions about it and you want some general information, feel free to hit me up.
All right, and I'm definitely going to be doing that the live conference, well, not in-person conference. I actually wanted to do inside Mattapan, probably at the library somewhere, so people could come talk to us, see us face to face and whatnot. Obviously, when all this is done, and as before, you're going to be the first person I hit up. So thank you to everybody that's on. Definitely follow us, both of us. He gives great information and you can actually see what he's doing. And I'm going to try to do a lot more of these interviews just to get the information out to everybody. So follow me or definitely go to my YouTube page where I'll be doing the recaps. So I just want to say thank you. And we're definitely going to do a few more of these. 'Cause I know people are going to hit me up after with questions, but I'm going to want you to answer them directly.
Yeah, no problem, man. Anytime you want me back, just let me know.
All right, perfect. Thanks a lot, man. Good night.
I appreciate it, bro.
All right, thank you, everybody. It's your boy Manny. Once again, if you have any topics that you want me to do webinars, lives on, or anything, just hit me up, send me messages, and I'll do it. I really want to get this information out to you guys so that, especially right now with everything going on, if we could get out of this with momentum, is going to be amazing. If it's real estate, stock, just savings, understanding how the market goes. If I don't have the answers, just like I didn't have all the answers about real estate, so I found someone that knew, I'm going to get the person and I'm going to ask them some questions so that we both can learn together. All right? Have a great night. Until next time.